With the upcoming PlayStation Plus relaunch, I thought it would be fascinating to take a look at the service when it first came out back in 2010, a time where most people either did not have it or at the very least don't remember what it had back then, and of course how it evolved and changed over a 12-year period, so that's what we're going to take a look at. Now, a lot of you probably remember that PS Plus was initially introduced and announced during June 2010, right? So it was pretty quick when we learned about it and it was shipped. But we did catch wind of it a bit prior to that during one of Sony's financial reports. I don't remember which one, but that was when Sony outlined pretty directly that they were going to introduce a new higher tier of PSN. And, well, shortly after we got Sony's 2010 E3 press conference, where the Sony Computer Entertainment of America president and CEO Jack Tretton announced PlayStation Plus. And the original sales pitch of PlayStation Plus was kind of a pretty lengthy bullet point situation where they promised at least 4 free games a month at no extra charge, also possibly free DLC, 1 PSN title, 2 minis. Now, minis, of course, were the bite-sized games on PSP that were also playable on PlayStation 3. That was a very small initiative that Sony did to kind of compete with smartphone games, and they were trying to court a lot of smartphone developers. So you were promised 2 minis and also 1 PS1 classic. So 4 games total. But on top of that, there was also the promise of monthly premium avatars, dynamic themes, some that were exclusive to members, also exclusive discounts, priority access to select demos and betas, also full game trials, being able to play at least 1 hour of the full game with progress and trophies carried over if you buy the game. Also automatic downloads. Your PS3 will wake up overnight and push new patches and firmware. Now that was pretty big at the time actually, because PS3 was notorious for, well, having a lot of patches and firmware, and on PlayStation 3 you couldn't set those to the background. So if you start your favorite game and it had a patch and the patch was quite big, there was really nothing you could do. You had to sit there and wait for it. And for members in the US, free access to Core. That was Sony's monthly video magazine. I feel like a lot of people forget that this was a thing at some point, but Sony was charging, $4.99 a month for what was essentially advertising, getting insight and HD trailers into upcoming games and releases. But I mean, that's the kind of stuff where it's easily available online even back in 2010. So Core was a very interesting, quirky, weird thing, but you were getting free access to Core in the US. And the promise of offering at least $200 of value per year, that was kind of the original sales pitch of PS Plus. And keep in mind, back then it was $49.99 USD per year. Nowadays, PS Plus Essential is $60, but at the very least, it was slightly cheaper back then. But they were promising a very modest $200 in value with all those items. Now, I thought it would be quite fascinating to actually look at the original reception to PlayStation Plus when it was announced. So we've actually got the comments here from the PlayStation blog, and I thought it would be kind of trippy to look at what are essentially 12-year-old comments. So we've got 542 comments, and the second one is cross-game chat. Who remembers that debacle on PS3, where we went that entire life cycle without that feature? 360 had it, and, well, it never came. And, the thing is, if you were there early on PS3, communication was always the worst because before in-game XMB, if you wanted to message somebody or be in a voice chat, while the entire life cycle you couldn't voice chat while playing games unless you were both in the same lobby playing the same game. But if you wanted to send a simple PSN message, you had to quit before in-game XMB, which was a huge pain. What else we got here? There's not much there for $50. What's the euro price? Is that really it? No way this is worth 50 quid a year. Yes, faints. We've got quite the duality going on there. Sounds great, and the features are cool. I just hope more features will be added over time. If that's the case, then I will be happy to buy the price for plus. Encouraging, optimistic. That's always nice to see. I truthfully believe that the fee is a little too expensive for the provided content. I highly doubt I'll ever jump into the premium service, but would gladly take part in the 3-month trial. Besides, the PS2 store would have been a great addition. Sorry, but the automatic download feature sounds like something that should have been included right from the start. To pay for it borders on criminal, in my opinion. So for this whole scheme, it doesn't sound very promising, and I'll need a lot more features before getting on board. So the other thing to keep in mind in the context of 2010 is that it was free to play on PlayStation 3 online. So you didn't need Plus. This was very much kind of a initial soft offering of a premium service for on PlayStation Network, right? So I think PS Plus was always going to be a hard sell back then. No cross-game chat. When's it coming? It sounds okay, but it does need more features. But I do think the automatic updates should be free. You guys really haven't put this together well and don't explain it too good at all. You guys have mucked it up big time with this, charging $40 a year for rentals, basically. Why couldn't you have just offered cross-game chat and stuff that people wanted all along? Why would anybody pay for this, but not this garbage or whatever? £40 for £200 worth of games is only worth it if the games that it offers appeal to you. The only thing that appeals to me is automatic downloads, and I'm not paying £40 a year for that. Sorry, but this is crap and a total waste of money. Most of that stuff should be on the normal PSN service. Yeah, I think the large sentiment here was, well, and I remember this clearly, but there was a lot of pushback. It was just, why would we do this? Nobody wants to rent their games. Yeah, it's a lot of that stuff. So when PS Plus finally launched on June 29th, 2010, what did that first month actually have? Well, it had Wipeout HD, Rallycross PS1 Classic, Age of Zombies PS Mini, a full game trial for Infamous, the Warhawk Fallen Star DLC pack, Fat Princess Avatar pack, a Collision theme, multiple discounts and freebies for games and DLC from Midway, Tick Games, and Create Studios. And that's the US launch, but the Europe list is a bit different, so that came with a Killzone DLC pack instead of the Warhawk one. Also 2 dynamic themes instead of the 1 static one in the US, and also the Field Runners PlayStation Mini. This was still something where it was well before Sony had their globalization effort, so oftentimes there was a decent amount of differences between the regions, but that was the first month of PlayStation Plus, which in terms of a bullet point list, it seems like there's a decent amount there, but this was also when we did not have, and it was certainly not commonplace on PSN anyway, to have full disc-based PS3 games being offered on PlayStation Network, right? That was very far and few between, and well, even if that was the case back then, I highly doubt Sony was going to be willing to give away larger scale, full budget games via PS Plus right away. So that first year of PlayStation Plus largely was just that. We're talking exactly what they outlined. It was PSN games, minis, and PS1 classics, full game trials, the themes, avatars. It was actually a lot, but that was all pretty common. But definitely no full price, larger budget recent games. Now, after that first full year, Sony outlined what they gave away, which they claim that they gave away more than 50 free games, over 100 free DLC items, 170 plus discounts, over 100 exclusive and early access items, and over $800 plus in savings, well over the initial $200 that they modestly quoted when the service initially launched. But yeah, it seems like a decent amount of stuff, and it's pretty interesting to see just how much it has changed, because really it's more of a night and day difference. Nowadays it feels like PS Plus, the essential tier, is more or less just, two free games, or at least it was 2 free games for quite a bit. Oftentimes you would have a bonus game. Now if you're on PS5, it feels like 4 games because you can play the PS4 stuff, which is good, but it largely feels like 4 free games, and that's kind of it, because the more passive features of PS Plus, like the cloud saves or the discounts on PSN, those all kind of blend in if you're a long-term PS Plus subscriber, so you just kind of, you feel like you've always had that if you've been subscribed for so long, because largely you have to have PS Plus if you want to play games online, right? So it almost feels like it's been there, even though it is technically a benefit of your PS Plus membership. But yeah, it does feel like it's just that, whereas back then it was quite a lot of items. Granted, you might not use all of them, but we don't really see things like free DLC anymore, and that was a very unique situation in that you would have had to have the game to begin with to really take advantage of a free, map pack, a free DLC story item, an epilogue or whatever, right? Which was very common back then. Nowadays, it's not rare, but it's more uncommon, because we either have just free updates or these long-term, season passes that people buy for $40, $50, and of course, microtransactions. But yeah, we don't see the free DLC items. 100 exclusive and early access items, which was, demos and priority beta access. That stuff is all largely free nowadays outside of PS Plus. As far as I know, I don't think there's any sort of PS Plus member requirement, or rather priority access for any sort of betas that do come out nowadays. If you can access a code or secure a code, it's going to work on your account no matter what. So that kind of went away, and we all know demos definitely went away. But having all the smaller games, right, or the PS1 classics, that was always pretty cool to me, in that if you are, actively buying a lot of larger disc-based games at $60, it was always nice to have sort of these smaller PSN titles or PS1 games as palate cleansers in between. And well, nowadays that's something where it's these kind of higher scale independent titles, or they might not necessarily be independent, right? They could be published, but you know what I mean, kind of smaller scale titles that live solely on PSN, Xbox. Microsoft loves securing a lot of those for Xbox Game Pass, and they are really great palate cleansers. And to some degree, PS Plus back then was kind of doing strictly that, those kind of games, those kind of items, which depending on your preference and how you were playing games back then, it might have fit into your overall gaming habits quite easily, and I know it did for me. Now, eventually PS Plus did get cloud saves. That was a really big one. That was the update and that came in the first year of PS Plus. So that came March 2011 via firmware 3.6, and that was definitely a big value boost to the service. And of course, by November 2013, with the PS4 launch, PS Plus was absolutely stacked for the most part if you were an active PlayStation customer, because they were now giving away titles for 3 platforms. So that November, actually, that month had Resogun, Contrast, Ibn Ab, Dragon's Dogma, Dark Ariser, Binary Domain, which are finally some larger scale PS3 games, Soul Sacrifice, Oddworld, Stranger's Wrath HD, but this was also when Sony required PS Plus for online play on PS4, so the expectations naturally went sky high. And really, if there was ever a time to require PS Plus for online play, man, did they pick the absolute best time, because we all know why. That was when PS4 had so much momentum going into it. Microsoft completely, fell flat on their face in terms of PR and messaging for Xbox One. We all know what happened there. And so even with requiring PS Plus, they definitely got away with that very easily and skirt that under the rug. That was the time to do it if they were ever going to require it for online play. But be that as it may, we saw that throughout the PS4 cycle. Then PS Plus, the value started to quickly erode with a not really good monthly instant game collection. And, well, more or less we can sort of speed run to where we are today, where now we have the PS Plus relaunch and PS Now being rolled in, the branding dropped. It was certainly a night and day difference in terms of the evolution from what it was back then to what it is today. And now with the new relaunch, we can beg the question again, is PlayStation Plus, the new version, the new generation of it, going to be worth it? That is the big question again. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't just yet, please consider subscribing for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at Mystic Ryan, and that is it. I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.